Okay. What I am going to discuss today is determination of equilibrium income. Having discussed the consumption function and the investment function as Keynes proposes, I would like to conclude the discussion on this with the determination of equilibrium income. So we would like to understand what is equilibrium income, what is the difference between equilibrium and identity in the context of income, and then if there are disturbances in the economy with respect to income, how is there any possibility to restore back or to restore the equilibrium, or we'll have to stay with equilibrium unless we undertake some necessary measures. So that's the topic I'm going to discuss today. So I will take GDP as income. You know that there are different ways to define income. We can talk about GDP, GNP, NDP, and so on. So taking the GDP as the income of an economy, as you already are introduced to these terms, we can one definition or one variant of income being GDP, we can say when what is the total income of an economy, that can be the, if you take the consumption approach, expenditure approach, then it is the sum total of all the expenditures of an economy, which is nothing but the income of an economy. So that is consumption plus investment plus government purchase plus net exports, uh, net foreign trade, that is export minus import. So this is basically not an equilibrium. This is something which is always true. The total income of an economy is the sum total of all these expenditures. So we can put it in another way. We can say that suppose I take the case of a closed economy, or to begin with, if we talk about the open economy, then one way to present income is y to be equal to c plus s plus t plus x minus m. If you recollect the circular flow diagram, which I discussed in the very beginning, we have talked about these things. The entire income is utilized in these ways. A part is consumed, the other part is saved, third part is paid as tax to the government, and the fourth part is exported, and correspondingly there is import, so it is export minus import. That would also be a part of the total income. But this is the leakage part of the definition of income. The injection part correspondingly becomes the c plus I plus g plus x minus m. So s plus t are replaced by I plus g. If there is saving, there must be investment. If there is tax, there must be government expenditure. So even this definition of income is just an identity, not an equilibrium. This is always true. As I proceed with the thing, I'll explain why I'm saying that it is an identity, it is not necessarily an equilibrium. That means when I say the your injections become equal to leakages, why can't that be the income which is at equilibrium? Why can't that be equilibrium income? I'll explain that as I proceed with the topic. So if I take the case of a closed economy as a special case, dropping the export and import from the analysis, then what we can write, as I have already said, y is equal to c plus s plus t plus x minus m. In another sense, it is y is equal to c plus I plus g plus x minus m. So x minus m will be dropped because I am only talking about the closed economy. So then GDP or the income will be equal to c plus I plus g, which is same as c plus s plus t. So this national income is nothing but either of these two, leakage side definition or the injection type definition that will give us the total income of the economy or the national income. Now, these terms can be used in nominal sense, or these can be used in real sense, or you can talk about real income or the nominal income. So just to differentiate real income from the nominal income, what you need to do, you'll have to deflate the real income, the nominal income by the price level, general price level, that is the average price level prevailing in the economy. So then we can write the real income. That would become, suppose in this case, equation 3, where I am using for the real terms, I am using small letters. So small c stands for the real consumption, whereas capital C stands for the nominal consumption. Small I stands for real investment, capital I stands for nominal investment, and so on. So real output identity can be re-expressed as y to be equal to c plus s plus t, which is same as c plus I plus g. So these are the things which we are already introduced to in the context of the circular flow diagram. Now, this y to be equal to c plus I plus t, and it is also equal to c plus I plus g. This can be reformulated. If y is equal to c plus I plus g, then what is y minus c? If we like to know how much is there which is other than the consumption expenditure, so it is y minus c. So y minus c then would become I plus g. In another way, if we look at it, what is y minus c? It is s plus t, because y is also equal to c plus s plus t. So y minus c is also equal to s plus t. Saving plus taxes on the one side, investment and government expenditure on the other side. So if this is the case, if y minus c is equal to s plus t, then, and also it is I plus g, then we can simply write that I plus g is equal to s plus t. Or we can also write further as I to be equal to, what is I? Total investment of an economy is equal to, has to be equal to total saving. Now the saving has two components. One is private saving, the other one is public saving or the government saving. So how to find out the government saving? So rearranging equation 4, I plus g is equal to s plus t, if I like to re-express it as I to be equal to s plus t minus g, that would be same as I plus g becoming equal to s plus t. So what is t minus g? T is total taxes collected by the government or paid by the people to the government, minus g is the government expenditure, all that the government spends. So if t minus g is greater than 0, there is government surplus or there is government saving. So total saving comprises two components. One is government saving, the other one is private saving. So I is equal to total I is equal to total S. Total investment is equal to total saving, or the national investment is equal to national saving. The national saving has two components. One is private saving, the other one is government saving, T minus G. Now, this I that I talk about can be divided into two components. One is planned I, the other one is unplanned I or unforeseen changes in inventories. Unforeseen changes in inventories. So if you look at equation 5, when I say I is equal to S, that means the total saving is private saving plus government saving. One would say perhaps the economy attains equilibrium when that happens, when I becomes equal to total saving. But this is still not a case of equilibrium. This is still an identity. So the then in order to find out whether the economy in question has attained equilibrium or attains equilibrium, what you need to understand is to see what does I comprise. I comprises two components. One is planned I, the other part is unplanned I. The sum total of these two gives you what is called realized I. So realized I is always equal to planned plus unplanned I. So that is what we are showing in equation C. Now the question is, what is this unplanned I or unplanned change in inventory I am talking about? If you recollect, I have talked about inventory investment. I have talked about three types of investment: fixed residential investment, non-residential investment, then residential investment, and then finally the inventory investment. So the inventory investment can be planned, it can be unplanned. I have also discussed that. That means, or to put it otherwise, investment can be planned, investment can be unplanned. The investment which is planned is something which is a priori decided that suppose let's talk about a particular company. Suppose Hyundai has made an estimate about the market conditions, and accordingly it has decided to manufacture or invest 500 crore rupees to manufacture a new car model. And it comes up with suppose 5 lakh cars to sell in the market. So this is planned inventory. Sorry, planned investment. Within this planned investment, there could be some planned inventory investment as well. That means out of these 5 lakh cars, the company plans to keep, suppose 20,000 cars in the stores, in the warehouse, to meet unforeseen contingencies. This is something planned. The company knows it can sell only 4,80,000 cars, but it has decided to manufacture 5 lakh cars, 20,000 extra cars it manufactures in a particular year, despite knowing the fact that only 4,80,000 will be demanded. So these 20,000 extra cars which it manufactures, it's planned inventory investment. So obviously it is planned investment. But suppose at the end of the year, the company sells only 4,50,000 cars. So then what will happen? What would happen to the inventory amount? The inventory will rise to 50 lakh cars. 50,000 cars. 20,000 would become planned inventory investment and 30,000 would become unplanned inventory investment. In monetary term, if you like to see how much is the inventory investment, planned and unplanned, it could be suppose let's say it is 50 crore rupees. The company has invested in inventory to the tune of 50 crore. 20 crore planned inventory investment and 30 crore unplanned inventory investment. The company did not plan to keep 50,000 cars in store. It is forced to keep 50,000 cars in store. So these 30,000 extra cars which are kept in the warehouse are called are a part of the unplanned inventories or unforeseen changes in inventory in a particular time period. From national income accounting sense, anything that is produced in a particular year, whether it is planned or unplanned, anything which is produced is a part of the national income. The monetary value of that becomes a part of the national income, becomes a part of the income of an economy. So unplanned inventory also is a part of the income of an economy. So then if I say income is the sum total of all the expenditures, including investment expenditure, the investment expenditure has both planned and unplanned amount, then national income that we estimate is basically estimated in a realized sense, not in planned sense. So in realized sense, income is always equal to expenditure. In realized sense, income is always equal to expenditure. All that is produced which is not being sold, even if it goes to the inventory, it is already produced. So it becomes a part of the national income. It appears, when it goes to the inventory, it appears as if the company has sold the certain products to itself. It is selling 4,50,000 cars to the public, and the remaining 50,000 cars which it didn't sell, it goes to the inventory. So it is as if the company is selling to itself. So when it comes to estimating the total income of an economy, it is the sum total of the income generated by all the companies out of both the planned and unplanned investment, not just the planned investment. So we are considering all kinds of expenditure, including the investment expenditure. So in real, when I say I is equal to S plus T minus G, this is always true in realized sense, because this I that I talk about is realized I, and realized I is always equal to planned I plus unplanned I. So in realized sense, national income has a component of I that is realized I, not planned I. So in realized sense, I is always equal to total savings, that is planned, this public saving and the private saving. But as you observe, realized saving, realized investment has two components: planned I plus unforeseen changes in inventory, that is daily inventory. Then we can replace the investment component of equation 4 by I bar plus daily inventories. Then we can write I bar plus daily inventories plus G, which is equal to S plus T. So equation 4 can be rewritten as the equation 7. If I add C, which is already dropped, then the national income accounting, in the national income accounting sense, Y is always equal to C plus S plus T on the one side, and C plus I plus daily inventory plus G on the other side. Before I show what is equilibrium income, how to convert this into equilibrium income, just let me introduce a few other concepts. Like we already know, just a kind of a recapitulation of that this T that I talk about, it can be a function of income, assuming that it is a function of income and it is proportional to income. So T becomes small t y, where T dash is greater than 0, which is the slope of the consumption tax function, that is del T by del y. So, and similarly, C and S, consumption function and saving function, which we have already discussed. Consumption is a function of the disposable income, disposable personal income. Saving is also a function of disposable personal income, that is y minus T. So when T becomes Ty, So here we will have to, when we say consumption is a function of income, so it is small c y minus ty, that is consumption, where c dash is greater than slope of the consumption function is greater than 0, which is MPC. And similarly, saving function is a function of disposable personal income, that is income minus tax. And then again here, the slope of the saving function, which is MPS, is also positive. And we also know MPC plus MPS is equal to 1, because all that is not consumed is saved, and vice versa. These are the terms which we have already been introduced. Just I am recapitulating all these, which is presented with the help of this diagram. Okay, how the total income is distributed among the three things, like tax a part, consumption another part, and saving the other part. That's what is shown here. Now I am coming to the equilibrium part. So as you have observed, I bar, which is planned I, plus del inventory, which is unplanned I or unplanned change in inventory, plus G is equal to S plus T, and this would become an equilibrium income only when del inventory has to be 0. The unexpected part, the inventory, unplanned inventory part, should be 0 for the economy to convert the identity into an equilibrium. So, and or to put it otherwise, as you already know, S is nothing but small s y minus ty. T is nothing but ty, that is tax. So we can write the equilibrium income as I bar, that is planned I, plus del inventories plus G, which is equal to S plus T. And we know S function, we know T function, and we have expressed that. Again, here also we can say equilibrium is attained when del inventory is 0, or there is no del inventory. There is no unplanned increase in inventory happening in the economy. So if I write I plus del inventories plus G is equal to S plus T, which is an equilibrium. Now then, when del inventory becomes 0, then we can drop it. We can simply write planned I plus government expenditure, which is equal to total leakages, and they are saving plus tax. So an economy attains equilibrium income when saving plus tax, the leakages, become equal to injections in planned sense, not in realized sense. So what we are expressing on the left side, we are talking about only planned I. There is no unplanned I. As long as there is unplanned I, the economy doesn't attain equilibrium income. So what is clear now is that when I say Y is equal to C plus I plus G, it is not an equilibrium. It is an identity if we consider I to be realized I. But if we say that realized I has two components, planned I plus unplanned I, and unplanned I is 0, then only Y becoming equal to C plus I plus G will become an equilibrium. Or what is Y is equal to C plus I plus G is same as S plus T becoming equal to I plus G. But it has to be in planned sense, not in realized sense. So here it is I bar, not total I. So I bar is the planned I. But when income increases, we might observe the leakages becoming greater than injections. So if S plus T is greater than I plus G, it would indicate that del inventory is positive. If you may not always attain equilibrium income. Every year the economy in question will attain equilibrium income, that is not guaranteed. That S plus T will become equal to I plus G in planned sense. It may not always be true. It may not always be taking place. So if S plus T is greater than I plus G, it would imply Y is greater than C plus I plus G. So Y is greater than C plus I plus G in plant sense is same as, Y is equal to C plus I plus G is same as S plus T is greater than I plus G. What does it mean? It means overproduction in the economy. When Y is greater than C plus I plus G, total income is greater than total expenditure. It is same as S plus T is becoming greater than I plus G. So and that would lead to overproduction in the economy, lesser demand, and that would lead to positive daily inventories. So if daily inventory is positive, what would this indicate? It would indicate that there will be extra inventory. So what the producers could do is they will call back the orders until daily inventory becomes zero. They will reduce the production until the daily inventory becomes zero. However, if daily inventory is negative, just see, an economy may not always operate at the equilibrium point. It is good that economy has zero daily inventory, but it may not happen always. If daily inventory is positive, which would indicate that there is overproduction in the economy, S plus T is greater than I plus G, or Y is greater than C plus I plus G, the economy is in disequilibrium. If daily inventory is negative, again also the economy is in disequilibrium. So if daily inventory is negative, there will be unexpected demand, and to meet that, what the producers could do is they will expand the production, expand the output until daily inventory becomes zero, which would be possible only at equilibrium. So the equilibrium income is the necessity for every economy of the world. It may not necessarily mean that the economy always attains equilibrium income automatically. Y may not become equal to C plus I plus G automatically in plant sense, or S plus T may not be equal to I plus G always. So S plus T, if it is greater than I plus G, it implies that daily inventory is greater than zero. Or if it is less than I plus G, S plus T is less than I plus G, then daily inventory is negative. So the economy in question may be at disequilibrium in two ways. When daily inventory is positive, the production is cut back, a possibility of declining output to follow. So what would then that mean? You are into the phase of recession. The economy is producing more than what it is demanding, and that creates daily inventory, a positive daily inventory. So you keep reducing the production, and you are entering into the phase of recession because you are reducing the output. In the other case, when daily inventory is negative, there is unexpected increase in demand, then you increase the production in subsequent phases, then you are entering into the phase of boom. The economy is experiencing boom or prosperity. The same thing that I said can be presented with the help of a diagram, these two sets of diagrams. As you can see, I have drawn I plus G as a horizontal line, assuming that both I and G are autonomous. Investment and government expenditure both are autonomous. They are independent of income. I have taken income as a factor to determine all the injection and the leakage side variables, and in this case I am assuming that I plus G are autonomous. So as a result, I plus G has become a horizontal straight line. Then S plus T, S and T, as I have already shown you, both are the increasing functions of income. I have combined them. We may not combine, but in this case, I have combined S plus T, saving and tax function. Because both are the functions of income, we have combined here. So the economy attains equilibrium income when S plus T becomes equal to I plus G. And that would be possible at YE level of income. And you can see here, S plus T has a negative intercept. Because as you know, saving is a counterpart of consumption. C is equal to A plus BY. Correspondingly, S is equal to minus A plus 1 minus BY. That is the reason why saving curve has a negative intercept. So, S plus T becomes equal to I plus G at YE level of income. But as I told you, the actual income could be greater than or less than the equilibrium income. If actual income is Y0, not YE, we can observe that S plus T is greater than I plus G. So there is positive Dell inventory. On the other side, if Y is Y1, there is negative Dell inventory. The I plus G is now greater than S plus T. There is more demand than supply in this case. In the other case, in the previous case, there is more supply than the demand. Correspondingly, if you like to know the time rate of change of income, that is del Y by del T. The T here is time, not tax. Del Y by del T in the bottom diagram. Del Y by del T, depending upon how S plus T is linked to I plus G, you observe the change in income accordingly. Del Y by del T is positive but declining until YE level of income is reached. At YE level of income, del Y by del T is 0. Before that, it is positive. After that, it is negative. So, as I have, if you relate this bottom diagram with the upper diagram, as I was telling you, when del inventory is positive, there will be reduction in output. The producers will reduce their output in the subsequent phases. So the economy will enter into the phase of recession. As the economy enters into the phase of recession, you will experience del Y by del T to be negative. Time rate of growth of income will be negative. On the other side, if actual Y is Y1, there will be increase in income until it becomes YE. Here, del Y by del T will become positive. So economy is into the phase of boom. It is realizing positive growth rate. So in one case there is negative growth rate, in the other case there is positive growth rate. But neither of them is a case of equilibrium income. Equilibrium income is attained when S plus T becomes equal to I plus G or del Y by del T becomes 0. Now, as I have just discussed, the equilibrium income is something that is desired. The actual income may not always be what the equilibrium income demands. All that I discussed, I will now express that or present that with the help of an example for an economy, and then explain if the actual income is less than or more than the equilibrium income, what is the take on this? Can equilibrium income be attained automatically? And what is the procedure? What is the process that can be followed to attain equilibrium income? Let's take the case of a particular economy. Suppose I am talking about Indian economy. Let's say in the time period 2021, We have estimated India's consumption function, that is 20 plus 3 by 4y. That is India's total consumption function. We have taken the income data and consumption data, and we proved that today in the current time period, out of every 4 rupees increase in income, on the average, people consume 3 rupees. So MPC value is 3 by 4, and 20 is the autonomous consumption, which is independent of income. Now this 20 that I talk about, that can be anything. You can say $20 million or 20,000 rupees, whatever. So C is equal to 20 plus 3 upon 4y. That is what we have estimated as the consumption function of the Indian economy in the current time period. And suppose, let's say, total I is only autonomous I. The investment is autonomous. It is independent of its determinants, and the total I is 20. Again, it can be $20 billion, whatever you assume it to be. How is equilibrium attained? Equilibrium income is attained when Y becomes equal to C plus I. Now, in this case, I have dropped the G. Just I have made the model very simple. I am not introducing even government. If you recollect 2-sector model, 3-sector model, 4-sector model I have talked about. So I am talking about the basic model where even I am not introducing the role of the government. In a closed economy, I am discussing the case of a closed economy where even government doesn't exist, or role of the government is not introduced into the model. So Y is equal to C plus I. That is equilibrium income. Again, as I have told you, equilibrium income is attained when del inventory becomes 0. So Y is equal to C plus I means 20 plus 3 by 4 Y plus 20. Then rearranging this, Y minus 3 by 4 Y becomes 40. So 1 by 4 Y becomes 40. So Y becomes 160. What does this mean? This indicates that if consumption happens to be a stable function of income, which is 20 plus 3 by 4 Y, and I is 20. That's what we already know. We have already estimated for the Indian economy that then the economy in question should not produce more than or less than 160. Its total income should be 160. You can say if every value is presented in $1 billion, then you can say suppose Y is equal to $160 billion. This is for the economy to attain equilibrium income, its total income should be $160 billion. Anything less than this or more than this is not an equilibrium income. You can prove this taking the other route. That is, as you already know, Y is equal to C plus I. If that is equilibrium income, it is same as S becoming equal to I. Saving becoming equal to investment in plant sense, again, as I have told you. So what is S? If C is 20 plus 3 by 4 Y, S will become minus 20 plus 1 minus 3 by 4 Y, that is 1 by 4 Y. So all that is not consumed is set. So minus 20 plus 1 by 4 Y, which is equal to 20, which is I. Now rearranging again, we get Y to become equal to 160. So in economy attains equilibrium income when Y is equal to C plus I in plant sense, or S is equal to I in plant sense. And if we already know what is C and what is I or what is S, we can find out the equilibrium income of an economy. Any income greater than or less than that is a disequilibrium income. So now just I will explain here. Suppose, let's say, the actual income is not 160. I am talking about Indian economy. In 2021 or 2020, which the year which has just been over, we produced, we estimated that our income should be 160. We should generate an income of $160 billion. But suppose the economy in question produced $200 billion. Because as I told you, the actual income that an economy produces or generates may be greater than or less than the equilibrium income. So suppose the economy in question generates an income of 200. Now what would happen to equilibrium income? Is 200 an equilibrium income? Can 200 be an equilibrium income? With the assumption that C is equal to 20 plus 3 upon 4y and I is 20, there is only one level of income which is at equilibrium, that is 160. Any income greater than or less than this cannot be an equilibrium income. How or why? Now let's take 200 income and put that into consumption function. 20 plus 3 upon 4 into y, that is 200. How much it will be? It will become 170. C plus, say 20 plus 3/4 of 200. So it will give you a value of 170. I is 20. So total expenditure becomes 190. Total supply is 200. Total demand is 190. Total income is 200. Total expenditure is 190. Now the economy obviously is not at equilibrium. There is 10 additional output you have produced more than what is being demanded in the current time period. So what will then happen to this 10? As I have already explained, this 10 will go to the inventories. So this is an unplanned increase in inventory. This 10 surplus income will go to the inventory. This is nothing but unplanned increase in inventory. So if for some time, like in 2020, the producers produced 200, sold 190. Again, they might have thought that, okay, last year it didn't happen. They could not sell all that they produced. This year they could. If they keep producing 200 years after years, every time they will create an extra income of 10, inventory investment of 10, unplanned increase in inventory by 10. A time will come when the producers will realize that they built up a huge unplanned inventory. So what then they will do? They will cut back the production because inventory has to be cleared. So they will go for cutting back the production. They will have to reduce the production. So what will they do then? They will reduce the production in the current period, in the new period, to restore equilibrium. So what will they do? They will reduce the production to 190. They don't know what is equilibrium income. What will they do the moment they realize that they produce more than what is being demanded? They produce 200 every time, the demand is 190 every time. So 10 is the surplus. What they will do, once they realize that they produce more than what is being demanded, they will reduce the production to attain equilibrium income. But then how much will they reduce the production to? They will reduce the production to 190 in the first stage, because they know that 190 was demanded in the last time period. But the moment they reduce the production to 190, C being a stable function of income and increasing function of income, C value will change. C will not remain unchanged at 170, say 150. It will now change to 20 plus 3 by 4 into 190. So it will become 162.5. So C was, 100, earlier it was 170, now it will become 162.5 plus I of 20. So I of 20 plus 162.5, it is 182.5. total income is 190. So total income is still greater than total expenditure, but the difference has come down. Difference has come down from 10 to 7.5. This 7.5 will go to the inventory. Now third period, producers will think, okay, last time you produced 200, 190, presuming that it would be sold, it was not sold. So, but next time it will be sold. So what they will do, they will produce 182.5, the amount demanded. The moment they produce 182.5, presuming that it would be demanded, again C gets revised. So 20 plus 3 by 4 into 182.5 would be the new consumption value plus I of 20. So now what will happen? The total consumption plus investment will still be less than total income, but the difference will come down from 7.5 to 5.6. So the process, this is called the process of iteration. This process of iteration will keep happening until the income is brought down to 160. So it is not directly brought down overnight to 160. It is brought down from 200 to 190, then to 182.5, then to 170, maybe 175 or 76 point something. Then gradually the income is falling until the income becomes 160. In the opposite case, when I say suppose the actual income is 120, equilibrium income is 160. Actual income is 120. If that is the case, the opposite scenario will prevail. That is, if you produce 120, but the actual equilibrium income is 160, then what will happen? C becomes 20 plus 3 by 4 into 120. So it will become 110. I is 20. So total expenditure will become 130. 110 plus 20, 130. Now total income is less than total expenditure. You demand more than what is being supplied. We demand 130, but there is supply of 120. So if this keeps happening, every time what will happen? The producers will clear the inventories to meet the demand. So there would be an unplanned decrease in inventory in this case. Then the producers will realize that better they produce more to meet the demand. Then how much will they produce in the very first instance to meet the demand? They will increase the production to 130 first. 130. Presuming that they will attain equilibrium. The moment they revise the output to 130, C will get revised. So that C plus I will be greater than 130 because your C becomes now, C plus I will become 137.5. But the difference has come down from 10 to 7.5. Then next time the producer should produce 137.5. Again the consumption will increase, but again consumption plus income will be greater than income, but the difference will become 5.6, then 4.2 and so on. So what you observe, gradually there is increase in income happening and the difference between income and expenditure is declining from 10 to begin with, then to 7.5, then to 5.6, then to 4.2, then to 3.7 or 3.8 and so on. Gradually there is a fall happening between fall in the difference between demand and supply until the equilibrium income of 160 is reached. So what do you observe? In one case, there is when the actual income is greater than equilibrium income, we keep reducing the output until the equilibrium income is reached. What is this phase all about? The output is reduced from 200 to 190, then to 182.5, then to 176.5 or 76.6 or 4 or something like that. So it keeps decreasing until it becomes 160. So what is this phase all about? This phase is the phase of recession. The current output is less than the previous output. The growth rate is negative. So when the economy in question is experiencing negative growth rate, it leads to, or it indicates recession. The economy is experiencing recession. On the other side, when your actual income is less than the expenditure, the total expenditure, actual income is less than the equilibrium income, we are onto the phase of boom or the prosperity. The demand will propel growth. Demand would always be greater than supply, but the difference will keep decreasing until the equilibrium is attained. So one would then suggest, as I have just explained, one would then suggest that equilibrium income is automatic. If actual income is greater than equilibrium income or less than equilibrium income, we can restore equilibrium through some processes of iterations. But what I am going to discuss in the next class is that why can't we convert? Okay, the recession phase I am talking about. If the actual income has become 200, what we are doing to restore equilibrium, we are bringing the income to a lower level, 260, to attain equilibrium income. What can be thought of is that why can't you convert the 200, the new income, higher income, as an equilibrium income? Let there be higher and higher incomes and each income be an equilibrium income. Can we do that? Without avoiding, while avoiding the recession, possibility of recession. Can we do that? So we can do that. That takes us to a new topic which I am going to discuss in the next class. That is called multiplier. Okay, so I'll stop here today.